Hello everyone and welcome to Building with Trimble. Today we're going to talk about developing the model-based estimate, and we like to think of this as part 2 of our model-based estimating series. Now before we go on, I want to apologize for not having the webinar on our normally planned scheduled date and times. So given that we are recording this session, we're going to follow a slightly different format. We'll have some frequently asked questions at the end. And we encourage you to ask any questions you might have by filling out the survey at the end. So now let's get on with introductions. My name is Christy Hunt, and I'm part of the product team coming to you from Trimble's Folsom, California office. Joining me today, we have Dwayne Gleason. He's from just outside of Washington, D.C. You might remember Dwayne from our previous webinar, Streamlining Early Phase Estimating. Dwayne is one of our product managers. He has a background in the field, working in the plumbing and mechanical industry. He moved into drafting and prefabrication and helped coordinate several large building projects in the DC area. Soon after that, he joined our VDC services team, and so he comes to us with a lot of practical experience directly from the field on this particular topic. Now, also with me today is Gustav Alexander Choto. Gustav brings more than 15 years of construction industry experience to the team, including 8 years with one of California's leading general contractors. He is a solutions engineer with Trimble's Building Point Pacific partner, where he is responsible for the cost estimating and BIM solutions, and he works closely with sales, services, consulting, and education teams. His focus has been in construction cost estimating, and he has extensive experience in a wide range of project types and cost estimating technologies. Gustav brings extensive experience in utilizing different estimating and takeoff software, and he currently serves as president of the Golden Gate chapter of American Society of Professional Estimators. Welcome to both of you. Glad to have you with us. Now, on every Building with Trimble, we do have goals. Today we have 3. You're going to see how to leverage 3D models for element takeoff and location-based quantities. You'll learn about augmenting missing 3D information with 2D and/or on-screen takeoff. And you'll be able to develop a living, detailed estimate to unite both the design and constructability. Briefly, I want to introduce Building Point Pacific. As I mentioned, Gustav works there. He's one of their solutions engineers. Building Point Pacific is the authorized distribution partner for Trimble in California and Hawaii. They bring to you some leading vertical construction technology, and they are a provider of the Trimble Buildings portfolio of products. Their team of experts can help you with hardware, software, and professional services for all of your Trimble building construction technology solutions. They have offices in San Leandro and San Diego, California, and you can find them on the web at buildingpointpacific.com. And with that, I'm going to turn the reins over to Gustav and to Dwayne so we can get started with today's presentation. Let me switch presenters and away we'll go.
Good stuff, Christy. Thanks for that introduction.
My pleasure.
All right. Looking good, Gustav. We can see your title screen, and we can get rocking and rolling. So the first thing that I would like to talk about today, Gustav, if you want to push the slide. So in the spirit of the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think this is the picture that really sums up BIM Office and the product and the workflows that you're going to see today. Up across the top there, you see what we would consider 3 tenets for success on a construction project, and that is your design, cost, and time. On the left, you can see that we understand that all those have a pre-construction phase and then, of course, an operations phase. The other really nice thing about this slide is that it shows you there in the upper left corner that BIM Office is actually not an authoring application. So for example, you won't model any content in there, you won't create your beams and columns in there, but you leverage the information that's coming in from all those authoring applications. Today we're going to focus on that upper middle box, and we're going to do some cost planning. But stay tuned with Trimble for a couple sessions further down the road where we'll look at cost managing, the time planning, and the time managing. And then the next thing we want to take a look at, Gustav, if you want to push on through. The way that we do it is through this slide here. It's a pretty simple representation of an extremely powerful workflow. Starting on the left, you can see a 3D element or even a representation in the 2D of an element. And then as we start to move right, you can see that from those basic representations, in this case just the column, we can start to extrapolate a lot more information. So for example, based on the volume of concrete that we find in a column, we know how much rebar is going to be required. Based on the surface area that we get from that column, we know how much formwork is going to be required. Obviously, we also know the concrete volume itself based on that volume. And then we can also figure out something like the cladding. From each one of those subcomponents, we can further derive things like the labor, equipment, and material. So if we know that there's 100 square feet of formwork, we have a basic understanding of how much labor it takes to put that in. We have a basic understanding of how much waste we'd want to apply to that formwork and how much material we'd need, and also what kind of equipment would be needed to get that job done. There in the upper right-hand corner is the representation of our understanding that construction's not built all at once. You never have this big homogeneous building constructed all in one go. More often than not, it's going to be divided up into different locations. Maybe it's floor by floor, pour by pour, face by face, depending on your work structure. We support all that in the program. You can create the locations and get all of your quantities by location. And I think that's what really, really makes this program special. Last but not least, something we're not going to have time to get into today, but Vico is also capable of being a model-based scheduling program. So if you've derived all those elements, broke them up into their locations, you can also create a schedule from it. So with that, Gustav, if you want to push on. And then the very last thing I would mention before I turn it over to my man Gustav is that this is just a reminder, a follow-on from the session we did a couple weeks ago where Chad Thielen demonstrated for us the early phased estimating workflow. If you'll recall, we were able to use something as basic as a napkin sketch or even a massing model created in SketchUp. We tagged some ratio-based quantities and cost onto that, and we evolved it through a few design iterations until he was able to show some element link-ups. Today, Gustav is going to start right in at the part of the design where we've already got some elements modeled, and he's going to show you how we turn that into a real deal estimate. So with that, Gustav, take it away, man.
Thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, Christy. Excited to be here today. Appreciate the introduction. Just a really quick, quick background on myself. I'm a traditionally trained estimator. Grew up in the industry, basically doing 2D takeoff using our traditional spreadsheets. We all know the programs out there, so just wanted to throw that out there. And now for the last couple years, I've been jumping into model-based estimating, and it's an amazing place to be. It is the industry now. It's not the future. It's the present. We can leverage these models and really get some good work out of them. So I want to just run through the agenda and let you know what I'm going to show you. We're going to jump right into the content, working with models, understanding them, kind of how do we analyze them. As estimators, we need to be comfortable with the documents first and foremost and understand the project. Then we will look at how we quantify the model in order to produce construction quantities. We're not talking about CAD quantity, we're talking about construction quantities, quantities that we would actually either build the job or estimate or schedule with. Then we'll look at how we leverage a robust cost database. Vico Office has the ability to reference many databases, so today we'll be referencing into our substructure. We're going to do a substructure estimate. And then we will develop the estimate and fill it out and actually do some variance reports. We have 3 different versions of the same model that we're going to review, and then we're going to see what the difference is and what changed. I want to run through a few slides here just as a kind of an intro to kind of warm you up before we jump into the software. The importance of 3D model sources, I think Dwayne kind of touched on it a bit and really had some good points. The fact that Vico is not an authoring tool, but it's an amazing planning tool. You can bring in models from various sources and analyze them, and Vico will run analysis on all those elements and give you those construction caliber quantities that we talked about. Also, another very powerful tool is our content management. We're able to manage our iterations of design. As we all know, designs never really stop. We always get addendums. We have different versions. We're either SDs, CDs, DDs, and we have a way to manage that process so we can make it clear. We color-coded it. We made it tiles. There's icons that can kind of easily give you information right off just by looking at it. And we'll kind of look at how that works. We'll also jump into 2D comparison. We all know that 2D documents are still a very important part of the business, and no matter what we do, we can't get away from them. And we give you a way to compare, highlight. We can also use a slider mode, basically what we call a virtual slip sheet, so you can kind of look back and forth between two iterations of the same design. We can do the same thing with models. We have slider mode, so you can kind of virtually slip sheet a model, kind of look back and forth and see what changes, quickly, intuitively understand the complexity of a project, the changes that have taken place. And we can also, on the right hand, you can see highlight the differences, color code, and highlight differences in the project from one design to the other. Then we will jump into working in what we call a hybrid design mode. So no longer do you have to choose between just a 3D model or working with 2D. You can work with them together and actually confirm that your 2D document is in lockstep with your model. So you can use your models with confidence and not wonder, is this model true to the contract documents? And then we'll jump into understanding the model, really looking at the scope of work, looking at it on an elemental basis, being able to kind of filter through all the elements that Vico Office has identified, and also look at the type of element that it is and the quantities that it produced. So on the screens here, you see one of the elements. We have a slab-on grade that's been identified, and we can see all the residual quantities that have been produced. And when we say construction caliber quantities, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have our edge perimeter, our hole count, our hole perimeter. We have bottom surface area, top surface area, edge surface area. So no longer you're just getting a CAD quantity from, say, Revit, that makes no construction sense, but now we can convert that and really turn them into something that you can leverage. We can also manage these takeoffs. So, for example, on the screen I have a couple pile caps. We can turn on and off takeoff. So instead of kind of clicking around the four corners, we see a surface that we want to take off. We can easily click it on and off if we need to. And again, 2D documents sometimes rule the day because either there isn't enough information in the model, or we just need to do a takeoff, or we haven't received the model and all we have are 2D documents. We give you the ability to do takeoffs on screen. One of the really important parts to note here is that when PDFs come into Vico, they're automatically vectorized, so you can actually click on lines and snap to edges and corners without having to guess around, did you get the right line or not? So, and in our final part, we're actually going to leverage these construction caliber quantities to build up our estimate on as you see on the bottom right hand. We have, in a sense, an n-tiered estimating system, so you can build up. Detail. You can start off at a really conceptual level if you want, with very few line items, but we give you the ability to evolve your estimate and add detail as you go along, and then activate almost like a tree and see what the difference is and how your design is changing. All right, without further ado, excited to show you and take you down this journey of BIM. So what you see on the screen here is our dashboard. This is basically your headquarters, your command central for all your projects. We have our code. We can code all our projects. We can add a type, see the day it was created, last edited. One important thing to note here on this screen is that we have every view that you have in Vico has a ribbon. And in particular, this ribbon, one thing I want to point out is our packing and unpacking. So BIM models tend to be, they can be big. So within Vico, we're able to pack those projects. You can archive them, save them for later. You can also collaborate with teammates and send them out in this way. So almost as like a zip for models, if you will. So the first thing I want to show you today, I'm going to use my tabs here that I've pre-set up. I can also access all of these through my master workflow panel. But the first one I want to jump into is document management. As estimators, we all know that we need to feel comfortable with the drawings. We need to understand the project on an intimate level. I would even say sometimes the estimator probably knows the project better than anyone else on the team. Sometimes even more than the designers, because the designers focus on their part. But as estimators, we have to kind of be the jack of all trade and understand every part and piece. So to me, document management is kind of our central hub of information. This is where you would manage all your 3D models, your 2D documents, and also control versions. So as you can see over here on the left, I have my document register. I have my 2D drawings here that I can open up. I have architectural drawings, and I have all my models. So we talked about different sources. As you can see, these symbols indicate the models, the model type that we have in here. So we have a SketchUp model, a Tekla model, ArchiCAD, and Revit. Another thing to note is our versioning. Each version that we've brought in creates a column. Our color coding indicates changes within the document. So here we see that there's been changes from the original. We also see, if we look down here on our model area, this node indicates which model is activated. And when I say activated, it means which quantities will I be looking at when I go into my quantity takeoff. We also see clouds here. That means that there's a markup associated with this drawing. So as we work through here, we work through doing some comparison. I'm going to show you what that means. So one of the first things that I want to show you here is analyzing a 2D document. So we can easily just drag a document in and view it from any of our sheets. And we can also do the same exact thing with our models. Just drag and drop and analyze and view. To take that step further with our drawings, we can select two versions and compare. And as I mentioned, we have this virtual slip sheet. This drawing hasn't changed too drastically, but here if I go in and look at a dimension, I can see that it changed from 7'11" to 7'10.5" inches. I can also compare different sheets themselves. So say in an example, I don't have a different scope, but say I wanted to overlay my plumbing over my electrical or vice versa, I could do the same thing. And let me get back here to my two drawings and show you highlight mode. So in highlight mode, we can actually color code each of the drawings and identify what the changes are. So as you can see here, I've assigned colors to different elements that have been changed or not changed. So if we look here, I have highlight settings, I have new, deleted, modified, and unchanged. So I can see here that this 7'10.5" inches has been deleted. I can also isolate it and just show only the deleted items and see what has been removed. As you can see, a lot has been deleted and a lot has been modified. We can also do this with overlay mode, so we can overlay several drawings together over the top of each other and view them. So I can color code. I've assigned yellow to my 35% and this light blue to my 100% TD, and you can see those same changes. And you can overlay various drawings. And again, this is where it would be a powerful workflow to have maybe your plumbing over your structural, over your architectural, and analyze, you know, are you coordinated? So it's almost like a 2D coordination within the drawing. And we could do the exact same workflow here with models. So why don't we take a look at our substructure model, since this is the one we'll be working with in our estimate. So we can rotate around a little bit and grab our node, and we can start seeing what the differences are. This particular one doesn't seem to have drastic changes other than maybe the piles. So if I grab my slider, I can see that the piles have been reduced significantly. I can also do the highlight mode and highlight the differences. So if you remember, I'd actually checked off only show deleted, but I can show everything, click OK, and now I can analyze the full model. And again, show maybe just new. And I have a way to actually set a tolerance. So if, for example, I don't want it giving me any information on anything that's less than an inch of movement. And I can see all the new items here as well. So we can easily understand what is the scope of work, how has it changed, how has it evolved, and quantify it. And if we go back and show all our items, we can kind of quickly understand, say we wanted to transmit this information to somebody in our team, maybe the estimator that's doing the substructure. I can easily create a cloud around this pile. The moment that I've created that, I've basically created an issue. And an issue is basically almost an RFI, if you will. It's a precursor to an RFI. And the moment I did that, I was able to get a contextual side panel where I can enter notes, code. The issue is automatically coded for me. I can give it a subject, description, an owner, any cost impacts. And I'm able to track this information later on. And once we get into the reporting, I'll give you a quick view into what these reports, because they come out looking really professional, something that you can feel confident about sending to an owner or to a design team. Dwayne, any other special points you think we might want to bring up regarding our document control?
No, the only thing I would mention there, we do get some questions sometimes about that change analysis and how it works. So for any of those hardcore BIM users out there, you would want to know that all of that, the colorization, the deleted, removed, and all that is based on the GUID, which is a very unique string to every element inside of a BIM model. And anyone who's used to working with more traditional plans, the 2D stuff, all of that is based strictly on spacing. So we just go in there and do some analysis and see if the spacing of everything has changed. But other than that, I think you nailed it, man.
Excellent. And one thing I just really quickly want to touch on, activation options. When we bring models in, you still can get all your elements, all your tags from your models here as well. So you're not losing a lot of the metadata that you get from models. So as you can see from the Revit, we've only activated family type because in this case that's all we really want. But if you had added any special tags, customized tags, you could have easily brought those in. And as you can see here, we can import directly from these authoring tools, and we can also publish directly from an authoring tool as well. All right, so with that, I'm going to move over here into my 3D takeoff. And when we activate a model, and we use the term activation, it just basically means we're analyzing the geometry of the model, looking at the elements, the different parts and pieces, however it's been modeled. So in this example, the best way to kind of describe that is if we look at some of the elements that have been activated. So today we mentioned we're only going to cover substructure. Essentially everything's been activated, but I purposely deleted them all just so we could kind of focus in on substructure. But if you look here over to the left, we've identified pile cap, piles, grade beams, continuous footing, basement walls, and each of these elements has a type. So the moment it was brought in, it was analyzed and said, and Vico knew this is the slab, this is a surface, this is a wall, slab on grade, another wall. And the reason this is important because it helps you to understand the element. If I were to turn on my isolation mode, I can see and kind of filter through and work my way through the elements to gain more understanding of my project. So instead of the days of trying to analyze a 2D document and then flip back to an elevation and then look at a section, you're quickly able to understand what the element is. And then to take that a step further, we can look at the properties of the quantities here. So let's look. I really think that piles are a really great way to understand how these quantities work. So for example, I have my isolate. I've isolated the pile caps, and say I want to understand. I see a net top surface area 7,047, and I know sometimes when you see quantities from BIM applications, you're like, how can I know where this came from? Is there any way for me to verify this quantity? With Vico, you can. The moment I touch that, click on it, all of the areas that have been quantified have been highlighted. So as you can see, I can also look at the edge surface area. So quickly, without much work, I've already basically taken it off. In a sense, this was almost like an on-screen takeoff, but it was automated for me, and now you can confirm. You can get that that same warm fuzzy feel you get from looking at your marked up 2D on-screen takeoff drawings as well. And I can also look at the bottom surface area as well. And kind of in the spirit of analyzing our project, one thing that I didn't cover, and I do want to show. So we're reviewing our models. We're trying to understand what the project is all about, and that is one of the really important things that modeling in BIM has brought to us is quick understanding. We take it one step further with Vico. Now we're able to basically work in a hybrid mode. So for example, what that means, I can reference and map a 2D drawing to my model. So in this particular case, I've mapped a section drawing to my model. I can also map an elevation drawing and understand what changes have taken place, or how does the model stack up to the drawing, and understand with confidence, say, hey, this particular drawing is perfectly matched up with my superstructure drawing. I can also use these drawings in order to cut section my model. So I have this section, and let me do that one more time so you can see unsectioned, sectioned. So now I can kind of dive in and dig deeper and be a surgeon about the model and understand it on a different level. And I can verify, hey, yeah, all the lines are matching up. I'm feeling confident. This model is solid.
Gustav, a good point of note here as well is if there's anyone out there on the line today who's dealing with a little bit of a generational transition within their estimating department, this is a great tool for that topic. You can see that you've got sort of the best of the traditional world with the 2D prints, but also the best of the new world with the 3D models. So it's sort of a language that everybody on the team can speak, and by having them together in a hybrid mode, it allows everyone to collaborate and both have their own perspective and get what they want out of it. So good stuff.
Good point there. Good point there. All right, so let's transition back into takeoff. So we saw a little bit about analyzing the quantities, understanding our what we call construction caliber quantities. But not always do we get models, or sometimes maybe we had our substructure model and we have other elements, other parts of other scopes of work we need to quantify. And within Vico, we give you the ability to do that. So no longer do you have to switch out to some other takeoff software. You can do it all within here and actually have even more power than probably any other 2D takeoff software on the market. So I have my 2D documents. Again, we have our register here and we have our drawings. Say I want to do a takeoff of, and I've got some takeoff here that I've already done, but let's say I wanted to take off another portion of this project. I've set up a takeoff item with various takeoff quantities. Some of the quantities that I've created are area of slab, perimeter of slab, height of slab, volume of slab, and edge surface area. So I want you to focus here in on these quantities. You can see I have 12,000, 1,100, I have 6 inches, 240, and 553. And what I really want to drive home in this view here is the fact that we're able to leverage one manually derived quantity and actually create a lot of residual quantities from that one quantity. So the days of having to take off the exact same slab 3 times because you wanted to get 3 different quantities are gone. No longer are you limited to one quantity type. You can create various. So let's just do a quick takeoff to kind of show you the power as well of our snap feature. So I mentioned earlier that we vectorize the PDF the moment that it comes into Vico. So now if you see I can hover around and it wants to grab onto different things. And each of these symbols indicates something different, either midline, corner, edge. But let's say, for example, I just want to grab this. Grab that. So I didn't need to zoom in and verify if I grabbed everything. I knew it because it was snapping to it. And as you can see, my slab increased from 12,000 to 14,000. Perimeter slab hasn't been updated, but I can quickly grab it. I can select any area, and I've quantified it, and now my perimeter slab. And really where the magic is right here. If you see, these quantities were automatically derived, and we can kind of jump in here really quick, and I want to show you this our takeoff quantity formula. So you can quantify and use formulas within the program and within the takeoff quantity. So I have my takeoff quantities here, and then I have my editor formula. So I know it's a little small here. I have my video card's a little out of date, so I need to get that updated. But here, area of slab multiplied by height of slab to derive volume of slab, and I have something similar here with edge surface area. But essentially, I could leverage this. So, for example, I wanted to take off. I wanted to derive the drywall from this particular takeoff. I could indicate a height of. I can create a quantity for height of wall, and then multiply it by perimeter of slab, for example, or perimeter of anything. The idea here is that you have flexibility. You can leverage one quantity multiple times. I don't know if there's anything, any comments, Dwayne, you want to add on? Anything I might have missed?
No, I think you covered pretty well how the takeoff pad is a great way to sort of augment anything that is missing from the 3D content. So no matter what your inputs are, primarily models, primarily drawings, you can tend to get all the information you need out of the system. So good stuff.
Yeah, we can do linear takeoff, area takeoff. We can deduct from a slab if we need to. As you can see, I put a hole in here. We also have counts and all the symbols. And then anytime you create a custom takeoff like the one I did here with these formulas that I did that I want to reuse, you can save those and use re-leverage them in the future, so your work doesn't get lost. All right, so let's get into some of the real goodness here. Let's let me clear off my my estimate so you can see how quickly it is built. I'd already built an estimate here for my substructure. All right, so what you're viewing here, this is our cost estimating view. Up on the left, I have our familiar takeoff manager with all our elements that we've reviewed before. I have my 3D image here. I have my estimate, which is our cost planner, and then I have a kind of a reference library, if you will. And this is kind of how I add structure to my estimate and how I kind of code it up to make sure that it looks right, and I can kind of slice it and dice it and filter it the way I need to. So if I look here, if I look here over to the left, my elements have been coded. So one thing that we can do, and I didn't do this for the demonstration because it takes a little bit of time, and something that you can also get ahead and pre-plan is have your architects or engineers use a certain coding structure and nomenclature that will work directly with your database. In this particular case, this project wasn't properly named, so what I did is I I renamed the elements properly and gave them the name that they needed. Sometimes, as we all know, we get those Revit models where they'll call a slab a generic 8-inch. So we can quickly just rename it, and all of a sudden you've given your model even more intelligence. So one of the first things I would do in order to build my model-based estimate is give myself some structure. In this particular case, I want to use uniform at level, and as you'll see, we can also leverage CSI. So I noticed that I have all my items currently are a substructure, so it's a simple drag and drop over to the left. So now I have that kind of, I would call it like a vessel, right, ready to be filled up. From my model quantities, I see I have some A10s, some A20s, some A40s. So I'm going to just drag that guy in there and nest it. And every time I drag it in there, you see it's automatically been nested underneath. Drag that guy, and I also have A40. So now I'm giving myself, and I'm kind of building up, and we're using that n-tiered system, and you'll see the beauty of that in a minute. Once we get some quantities and some costs in there, we'll see how that really you can roll cost up within seconds. So we know we have some A10s as well, and we have some A2020 and some A4010. And you see here, I didn't put that in the right place, but I can easily just fix that. And now I've nested it back where it needs to be. So right now at this point, I don't have any quantities, I don't have any cost. If I wanted to estimate at this point and create a high-level budget, I could just input it. Since I do have a lot of quantities and I have detailed quantities, now I can really get into estimating. So the first one I want to bring in, I want to do my cast-in-place footing. And that cast-in-place footing is going to be nested under my standard foundation. I will add a new subcomponent. And essentially what we're creating here are almost assemblies. So one nice feature that we have here is our AutoFill feature. I'm actually referenced into a cost library right now, my substructure cost library. So the moment that I start typing, as I can see up here, I have A1010. So I can just start typing and it starts autofilling, and I can see that continuous footing is right there. It's actually pulling that assembly from my cost database. And the magic is right here. Since I had recoded these elements and given them the correct names to match what I have in my database, voila. I've already built these in my database ahead of time with costs and consumption factors, productivity factors. So now I can really quantify everything and price it. And as we can see, from one quantity, we can derive other quantities. So the source quantity here is our 3,981, which has derived 79 hours. So we can derive hours, material from a source quantity. And when I say source quantity, I mean from our construction caliber quantity. So if I highlight my line item, I can quickly see what construction quantities I'm consuming. So in this particular case, for this continuous footing, I'm consuming net bottom, top, edge, net volume, and edge length. And if I want to take this a step further, I can turn on my isolation mode and understand what is the scope that I priced in this estimate. So as you can see, everything's working in unison. My takeoff quantities with my 3D views and my estimate. So why don't we add a couple more here? Let's collapse this guy, and why don't we take our stem wall, and we'll do another autofill here. And our A10, 1010 _10, and we can see here, as soon as I see it, I can just add it in. And this is just telling me that I have similar resources, so I want to keep my previous, I want to keep it all and add it in as unique. So now again, we can see our stem walls have been added in. Let's add our walls for subgrade as well. New subcomponent. And it's A1020 underscore 10. And it's actually 15. Oh, sorry. It's actually A10. And that's okay. So I brought that in. As with any program, there's several ways to do things within Vico, different workflows that you can use. I used our autocomplete feature, basically looking into our database, but we can also bring up our database over here on the right. If you're more comfortable dragging and dropping, I can look up my Imperial substructure database, and as you can see here, I have this exact same structure, and maybe I want to bring in a slab on grade. So I have one here over on my left. It's 41010 slab on grade. My coding structure is in unison, in unified, and I can just drop it in here. And I want to keep all my existing, which is fine. And then, wow, there you go. Quantified, priced, units of measure. If I want to add more information, maybe I'm more comfortable viewing this in CSI. I have the ability to add in more columns. So I want to bring that in, and then give myself a little more real estate, and I can analyze. Bring this to the front here so I can easily drag and drop and understand the CSI. And we can even drill down even deeper. So you can see it's cross-coded. We can slice it and dice it as we see fit. We can even sort by just clicking the top column. All right, so we've added some items, and I previously done this exercise with our previous version, our V1. Now, another step in this workflow is being able to compare what changed, not only just quantities, but cost, because it's important to be able to justify a change or identify them for future reference, whether we're trying to win a bid job or trying to justify a change in scope to an owner, or quantify a scope that a subcontractor has provided. So let's transition into our powerful reporting engine. So here in our reports, we have various reports, and you can create as many reports as you like. We've already got some pre-canned reports. So we can analyze our takeoff if we wanted to, but in this case, what we're going to do is run a variance report. As I'd mentioned before, I'd saved some versions and snapshots. So let's just create a variance report. Once I do that, it gives me the opportunity to select two different projects. So I want to compare my 35% CD estimate to my 100% CD estimate. Level of detail, I want to drill down a little deeper because I want to see quantity. So I'm going to put 4. We can go 4 levels deep, and then we click submit. And this is the report we get. So you get a really nice professional looking report. We have our cost comparison, we have our quantity comparison. As you can see, we can quickly identify the changes. So we see that our version 1 had very little piles. Version 2, a lot of piles. We can also see the quantity changes. Stem wall looks like they stayed pretty close, but we had an increase. Looks like here I had no grade beam in my original estimate. Pile caps, looks like there's been a huge change there. And then we can actually look into the actual numbers themselves and compare side by side. We can see in red here the changes that have been taking place in terms of cost. We can also compare quantity. So our continuous footing stayed the same. Looks like our stem walls increased a bit. Our piles increased drastically. We went from 69 to 288, so that drove a big part of the cost. Mat slabs are the same. Pile caps, cubic yardage increased, which makes sense since we increased our number. And we can see that a lot of these other ones have pretty much stayed the same. Dwayne, anything I might have missed on cost estimating or reports you might want to tack on?
No, I think you did a great job. The only really special takeaway for those on the line to remember is that those relationships that you made between the model elements and the cost database, they persist. So if your design, like you showed with the comparison report, if your design is updated multiple times, presuming that the naming convention stays similar, your estimate is going to update with it. So really, really helpful for iterative design, but also a little bit of a note to definitely make sure you get the nomenclature right on your models. But great job, Gustav, great demonstration. Agreed, model-based estimating is absolutely happening now. It's a byproduct of 3D coordination becoming the standard. A lot of companies are wondering what's next. How do we leverage these 3D models that we've put so much work into? And from our perspective, we're seeing a ton of uptake on the model-based estimating. So with that in mind, this is just a quick slide on how you can get more involved with model-based estimating. It's not an overnight process. It's not a flip of a switch. It takes some time. So if you are interested and you want to learn a little more, get in touch with one of our Building Point teams, and they can work on that first box there, the discovery, understand a little bit more about your business and what kind of information you're receiving and what you'd like to deliver. We do have an evaluation process structured. You get to try out the software, try out some sample files, experiment with the workflows. You can even put some of your own content if you want in there. We can offer pilot programs if you feel like you would like an extra hand to hold during the process. We have a services team that's very experienced in doing that, and we'll work with you hand in hand, step by step. And generally, I do want to say that if your company is going to start to bite this stuff off and wants to deliver model-based estimates in production, it could be a one-year process. I've seen people move significantly quicker, as quick as 3 to 6 months, and I've also seen companies take a lot longer, 2 years, and sometimes didn't make the transition too well. So bottom line is we're here. If you need any help, if you need any guidance, reach out to the Building Points, and that's what they're there for. So with that, Christy, we'll kick it back to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Appreciate all your efforts in putting this together. Let's get the control back to me. And we should be good to go now. Yes? Seeing everything?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So as I mentioned before, we're going to change things up a little bit here. And instead of pulling the online questions, because we're not online, we wanted to actually use this opportunity to answer some of the frequently asked questions we get about VICO, about model-based estimating. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to kind of roll through these few questions before we wrap it up. Sound good?
Indeed.
Great. All right, Dwayne, I'm going to hit you up with number one here. Does VICO only work with Revit models?
Fair play on that one. We do get that question quite a bit. It's understandable because Revit is sort of the de facto program in North America, but indeed, around the rest of the world, there's a lot of BIM applications out there that VICO does support, namely ArchiCAD, another great modeling platform. Of course, the Trimble ones, Tekla for structures, SketchUp. We also support Bentley EcoSim if you're working with that. And of course, the IFC files as well. They're sort of a neutral format. They work across all the different platforms and including in VICO. So yeah, much more than just Revit content inside of here.
Great, thank you. And while you're answering questions, let's run number two by you as well. So what is the difference between a quantity in, say, Revit and the VICO construction quantities?
The big thing is that, with any modeling application, all you're really getting is geometric representation, whereas from a construction perspective, you need details, and you need the details that are specific to the workflow you're doing. So you might get, for example, a volume coming out of a BIM application, but do you maybe want the gross volume because you're doing an early phase estimate and you're not ready to include your deductions yet? Or do you prefer that net volume, but maybe you want to split it out across multiple pour sequences or multiple work breakdown structures? Other than that, we have the distinction of the types of quantities that an estimator or a scheduler would want to use. So, in estimating, you might just need a pure tread count on a set of stairs, whereas in scheduling, you might actually need to know the volume of concrete that fills it up. So there's a big distinction between the geometry that's offered up by the modeling applications and what a company really wants to get when they do the estimates and schedules, and that's where Vico really bridges the gap.
Great. All right, so Gustav, we're going to switch it up a little bit and throw these, we'll probably actually throw the next two your way. So first off for you, do you need a model in order to estimate with Vico, or can I use 2D drawings?
You don't need a model. Models are great, and you saw how we can leverage a model to create quick, accurate construction quantities. But as I demonstrated, we can do all of that within a 2D document as well. So this is a full-blown 2D document, 2D takeoff tool. No, you do not need just models, but if you get them, by all means use them. And you don't even need 2D documents in order to use the estimating module as well. If you're driving your quantities by hand on a plan set and you're using a scale, you can type your quantities right into Vico Cost Planner and leverage those quantities that way. So you can estimate 3 different ways. Take them from your model if you get the model, derive them from the 2D documents, clicking off like we do on screen, and also just plugging in the numbers if you have the numbers. If you've received them a different way, or if you have a team of producing numbers from different sources, you can get those all into an Excel sheet and import them right into Vico.
Great.
And last but not least is we also support Excel import too.
Everybody's favorite, Excel. Good to have options. That's great. And then our last question is, what's the best way to get started on model-based estimating? I know for some folks it sometimes feels a bit overwhelming. You're trying to eat the whole elephant at once, if you will. So what's the best way to go?
The way that I got comfortable, Christy, was by just starting small. In our previous webinar, part 1 of their series, Chad Thielen did a great job of showing how you can quickly create some massing models and bring them into Vico, and just getting comfortable with the construction quantities and understanding them and a little bit of the nomenclature. It seems like a daunting task, but honestly, once you start doing it, it's super easy. And Vico is one of those softwares that once you really get in there, it just becomes so intuitive that, like, I literally wouldn't see myself going back to doing it the old-fashioned way. I mean, I can do it all with model-based estimating, because you can derive so many quantities just from, say, a volume or from a slab, for example. From one slab, I can derive finishes, I can derive all my volumes and my square footages, and there's just so many ways to leverage it. So I say start small. Get any model that you can get your hands on, bring it into Vico and start playing with it and just looking at those construction caliber quantities, and then even clicking off, doing 2D, like a 2D takeoff over a model, and compare what the quantity of what Vico produced versus what you clicked off, and I think you'll find it's usually exactly the same. So I say get confident, understand how to analyze a model, kind of split it up, federate it. And when I say federate it, look at the substructure, look at the skin, kind of just feel good with it. In no time you're going to be feeling like, why did I ever do it a different way? Now you can focus on developing your estimate, looking at your unit rates, and kind of working with your subcontractors instead of spending days and days doing just essentially coloring, right? That's what that's what 2D takeoff is we're coloring up drawings and giving them color. But as evolution is happening, you know, we move from doing it on paper to doing it on the screen, and now we're moving from doing it on the screen to doing it with intelligent models with tons of metadata that we can leverage to our advantage.
Great. Dwayne, anything to add to that?
No, that's a spot-on description. The only thing would be measure your successes. When you evolve to a new process as model-based estimating is, there's probably going to be some hiccups from time to time, and people tend to want to go back to what they know if they run into those hiccups, especially if they're in something as time-sensitive as estimating. But when you take a moment to measure your success and realize that, hey, we just quantified 10,000 elements, 20,000 elements in, you know, moments, that's a really big deal. And so maybe the way that you interact with the data is slightly different, and it takes you more time to get up to speed. But just remember that you've also shaved off hours, if not days, on the typically tedious task of takeoff. Say that 3 times.
I was going to say, typically tedious. That's fantastic. We'll write that down for our next, maybe part 3. We'll do that one.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys. I think we'll wrap it up here. I do want to put our plug in for Trimble Dimensions 2016. It is November 7th through 9th in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Venetian. We do have a website up that gives you the details on the various sessions that are planned for focusing on general contractors and construction managers. You can see that at go.trimble.com/dimensions_GCCM. Got it on the screen right here. And the other big news is the regular pricing ends on September 30th. So please be sure to register now before that price increase takes effect. I believe it goes up by $200. So that's a good little chunk of change there. We want to make sure you get in before that price increase happens. Registration is open. TrimbleDimensions.com is where you can sign up and register. It also has a link out to the Venetian where you can get our rate for that hotel as well. We sure hope to see you there. Gustav and Dwayne and I will all be there. We're really excited to show you what's new and what's going on with the solutions for general contractors. So hope to see you there. As we wrap up, we want to make sure you take the survey at the end of the webinar here as you log out. We appreciate your feedback. It's also a great place to put your questions if we didn't happen to answer any question you might have. Have a discussion with your team on how you can get started using model-based estimating. Is there a way you can make that switch from 2D to model-based estimating, or what are those baby steps you can possibly take to help get things going? Please be sure to visit our new website, gc.trimble.com. Lots of great information in there, case studies, information about all of our different products. So be sure to check that out. And before we say goodbye, again, I want to thank Dwayne Gleason. I want to thank Gustav Alexander Choto from Building Point Pacific. Thrilled to have our Building Point partners participating in these sessions. They're the ones you can turn to within your region. They're available, they're locations throughout the globe. So reach out and find that Building Point partner near you who can get you going on things like model-based estimating or any of our other solutions for buildings products. And so with that, we will see you next time on Building with Trimble. Thanks so much. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you soon.